To what extent was the specific choice of time period influential in terms of the hair and makeup design for you, or was it not?
Oh, it was absolutely, it was the absolute kind of nucleus of everything. You know, the as soon as I knew that it was going to be set in that time period, apart from being like completely delighted because I just love that whole kind of music scene, I feel like for the hair and makeup, I think it kind of gave me, you know, punk exploding at that time had such a kind of, it was against the establishment, it was unapologetic, it was new and creative, and people hadn't seen anything like it and was shocking. And I think, strangely, or I don't think I realized it at the time, but I think all those elements sort of seeped into what we were doing as well, and allowed us to sort of be like that too, you know, to not worry about, are people gonna like this, or what are we do, you know, just to be brave and to be bold. So I think it was absolutely a huge part of it, and it gave me a kind of anchor to start my research. You know, who is this girl, where's she living, what was happening in London at that time, who would her musical references be, who, you know, what fashion would she be into. So it was the kind of start of everything, definitely.
Which sort of leads me into my second question, because both Emma Stone and the actor John McCrea, I hope I pronounced that correctly, they're quite distinctive for reasons which are really obvious when you actually do watch the film. But beyond the sort of the glam rock and sort of the punk era, were there any other elements musically which you sort of latched onto when it came to initially creating the looks?
I think I'd spoken to somebody actually who was he was actually a friend of the Sex Pistols, and he kind of used to go in I think it used to be called the World's End before it became Sex, which was Vivienne Westwood's store and Malcolm McLaren's store. So he knew all of them, and he was saying that very, very early punk was sort of quite misunderstood, because he said there was kind of a bit of a sort of fluidity in terms of like sexuality and sort of which is why Bowie and that glam rock would just blew their minds, because he said it was like, oh wow, okay, if he's doing it, maybe this is okay for us to be like this. And so I think, and I think using fashion and makeup and hair for them at that time gave a sort of sense of empowerment. And I think I've used it the same in terms of Cruella and Estella, that creating these big looks gives her the kind of bravery to go to the Baroness's balls, and you know, she can use makeup in that way. So I think it does kind of connect to not just referencing people in music and their looks, but the kind of the whole feeling and spirit behind it.
Sort of like the cultural explosion, and maybe that sort of clash between the old guard and the new establishment coming together, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's a strange sort of symmetry, and I don't think it was something that I really thought about at the time. I think just Craig played music all the time on set. He kind of cuts scenes and plays music. He cuts scenes immediately while he's working and plays, you know, would play a Clash track over the top or something. So we were sort of seeped in that world. So I think when you're researching that much and you're reading about all these people, I was reading lots of books and about that time, and looking at lots of street photography, and I think that kind of vibe just, I don't know, is in you maybe when you're creating.
I was trying to formulate a question with regards not to just the music, but the artistic scene at the time. And I'm not particularly well versed, but obviously Warhol comes into it because it's sort of late 60s to early 70s.
Yeah.
Were there any specific artists which you look to in terms of influencing what the period you were going for?
I think I mainly was looking at lots of photography, and I wanted to keep it very real. Even though we were making a Disney film, I wanted to make that that lead character someone that you could relate to and believe. So I wanted it to be more kind of references of people that she was seeing on the street. So I just looked at a lot of street photography at that time and kind of anchored myself in sort of real people. But there was just a lot of kind of game changers at that time that were kind of taking references that they'd seen before and then putting their twist on it. And I think I sort of borrowed that as well, that, you know, to try to do the same.
I must admit, in terms of tone, it's a very interesting. Cruella's a very interesting film, and it's very unique. It doesn't feel like a Disney film either, which was a real sort of revelation for me when I came to watch it. Looking more at the character itself, were there, in terms of the hair and makeup, obviously that is a direct doorway into the character. Were there any collaborative conversations, any creative input which Emma had herself into the character during the process?
I think the greatest thing is because we have an existing relationship, and you know, I've worked with her before, yeah. and I know her, and so the greatest thing was that she gave me so much freedom and so much trust that she sort of just put it into my hands, which I think if I'd have thought about it at the time would have been massively overwhelming. But I think we were just on a roller coaster and had to kind of, you know, do it. So I had gathered so much reference and so much mood boards and so many ideas before she arrived. And I'd always be sending her things and she would say, I like this, I like that. But she kind of let me roll, really. The only thing that she pulled back on was that I wanted to go a bit heavier with Estella. I was looking at there was a girl, Jordan, that worked in Vivienne Westwood's shop at that time, and I think she's, you know, very famous for her look as well, and she had all these kind of graphic lines and things drawn on her face, and I really liked this very home done style of makeup. And so when I first looked at it, I wanted to do something quite far out with Estella, but Emma was very keen to keep Estella as kind of believable but kind of unnoticeable, unremarkable to the Baroness, you know. Nothing really stands out with her, so that the jump to Cruella is bigger, and it was, you know, it was the right thing to do, absolutely. So she's very into makeup and look, so she would let me kind of, she'd be very much into it, but not, kind of just give me the freedom to do it, really. That must have been quite liberating in a way, I suspect. It's a weird thing, you know, because I had it with The Favourite as well, and you look back at these things and think, oh my gosh, how amazing that you got all that creative freedom, and it sounds such a fantastic thing, but it's kind of scarier because there's no goalpost. It could be pink, or it could be green, or it could be, there's nothing. So, and with Craig being letting me roll as well, it's sort of terrifying because you don't know what the start point is. Do you know what? It's really interesting because that comes through really strongly in the film, that there doesn't appear to be, it doesn't appear to be filmed by committee. It doesn't appear to have any parameters to it. And that's a strength which, you know, it lends its strength, it lends it its own original sort of look, which is just immense. And that to me feels very much very punk. You know, there isn't one thing. It isn't, you know, as somebody wearing a teddy boy suit with tartan lining, or there's somebody else wearing safety pins and green hair, or whatever it might be. And I think that is, watching the film, it's like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. She's got one look to this look to that look, and there's no sort of theme in terms of her look. It's chaotic, and I kind of love that. Which is perfect. And having watched the film, a lot of people jumped on her look and the black makeup in one specific scene, and they all jumped on it and sort of compared it to Joker, which I'll put my hand up and go, everyone's so far wide of the mark on this. It's untrue. It's so, yeah, I was very happy I could say that now. I was going to say questions about Harley Quinn as well, and Harley Quinn and the Joker, and I was like, and they said, were they references? And I was like, I couldn't have been more shocked when that came out. I just thought, no, not at all. Well, the thing is, they've got a 2-minute trailer, and they're jumping on it before they've seen it in context. And the beautiful thing about it is that even if you see it in context,
it still doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense within the context of the film and makes the film so much better. But, and that's the but. Anyway, I was going to say, in terms of collaboration, the collaborative process, obviously you said you were given free rein by Craig and by Emma. Did Jenny and Nicholas, obviously the DP and the costume designer, was there any collaboration with regards to a clear distinction between Estella and Cruella with them? Because obviously they feed quite strongly into that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was always in Jenny's room. I was always going up into Jenny's room, and we had she is so, you know, when I first met her as well, she's like, you know, she's done all these huge films, and I thought she's going to know exactly how to do this and exactly how to approach it. And when I met her, she said, well, I don't know where to start with this. So it was like, right, okay, well, let's do this chunk by chunk, bit by bit, you know. And so I just used to go up there all the time with another book and go, I've seen this and I'm kind of thinking this. And she was like, oh, I found this bit of fabric and I'm going. So it was like a real melting pot of throwing things in all the time. And same with Fiona, actually, production designer. There's a real kind of, I feel like there's a real chemistry with me and her as well. It happened a lot on The Favourite, and that I'll see something she's doing and it will just spark, maybe we should kind of use a particular color or something like that. So there was a real kind of, we definitely all worked very closely. And it was actually Nicholas that I wanted to spray Horace's hair for the runway punk, you know, when he's got his own hair.
Yeah.
And Craig wasn't sure. And it was Nicholas that talked Craig into it. I said to Nicholas, and he was showing Nicholas going, what do you think? What do you think? And I was like, come on, please. Nicholas said, I think you should do it. We should do it. So I'm so pleased.
Out of interest, there's a scene which is quite reminiscent of V for Vendetta, which is sort of takes an antisocial vibe as well and sort of goes against establishment. Was that intentional? I know it's out of context and the question's out of context because it's just popped into my head, but it's to do with hair and makeup.
Where was that?
You know the scene I mean at the end in the charity ball where they've all got.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I saw that as a parallel between that and the masks.
Oh, I see. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but I might claim it and say yes. But
yeah, claim it, because I saw it and I immediately thought of that. And I thought,
cool. Yeah,
it ties in like that. And that's going to be in my review as well. But it will be really cloaked and really veiled. No one will figure it out. I was going to say, having worked, as you say, you've worked on The Favourite, 2 Tony McNamara scripts now, with The Favourite and Cruella. How do you think hair and makeup defines character above and beyond the printed word? So aside from the script, how does it elevate the character, do you think? It's more of a general question.
I think I'd always, I mean, on a kind of general thing, I was a very unlikely hair and makeup artist. I'd never really seen myself in I've never really been interested, you know, I'm not in department stores looking at makeup and stuff like that. And
yeah, sure.
I've always seen myself as part of the storytelling process. And the most glorious moment is when you do the smallest of details and someone starts to come alive in the chair. And also there's sort of hidden meanings in things that I've said it a lot now, so it's out there, but you know, like the Sex Pistols font across her face and things like that. You know, when I took that to Emma and said, you know, I'm going to write this, but in the same font as Nevermind the Bollocks. And she was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I think those moments give empowerment. And I think makeup, everyone uses makeup differently. People put a face of makeup on in the morning, and you know, some girls can't go out without makeup on, or guys can't go out without makeup on. And I think there is a sense of empowerment, and I don't think it's ever been as strong as in this film, that it is used as a tool of deception. You know, it is, she uses it to mask herself. And so it's a massive part of the storytelling process. And Tony's scripts the characters are so wild and are so kind of, it's all there on the page for you to kind of pick out and find things that, or it's not, it's there on the page, but you have no idea what it is. Like the badger moment in The Favourite, it's like, what is that? How do I put a badger on Olivia Colman's face? It's there, you got to figure it out. So it's kind of, it makes you dig somewhere deeper to find something. Like it says that the next day it's going to say, is Cruella the future? But how do I say that? How do I portray that in makeup? So write it on her face.
See now, because it says no future, right? On her face in the film. That's correct, isn't it?
No, the future.
Is it the future? Oh, it's the future. I thought it was no future because
no.
And goes my point.
So, yeah, so she's saying the future, and then the next time she drops when she's on top of the car over the Baroness, that says the past. So she's saying, I'm the future and she's the past.
Yeah. See.
So it's like, how do I write that? How do I do that?
It's narrative. It is, as you say, it's storytelling. I was going to mention Emma Thompson seems to be having a riot in this film. She seems to be, and I'll tell you, she reminded me of Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada. So there's a little bit of Anna de Winter in there, a little bit.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what challenges did that particular character throw up for you in terms of how did you approach that with Emma as well, the other Emma?
She brought on this fantastic, she's a big makeup designer, Naomi Don. They'd worked together before, so they had that kind of shorthand that I have with Emma as well.
Okay, yeah.
And she came on board, and I had all these references. I had a lot of references, like, you know, very rich kind of socialites, and, you know, Daphne Guinnesses and people like that, and Elizabeth Taylor, but a lot more 50s approach to it than 70s. And it was just amazing to have two such big female leads, but so completely different in terms of your approach for hair and makeup.
And really strong characters too.
Yeah, totally different decades. But the thing that I loved about where Naomi ended up with it with Emma was that there was a chicness and a sophistication to the look, but also this comedy. I mean, the hair structures got bigger and bigger, and, you know, so every time she wore them, it was just like this sort of, it added to the comedy between them on set. You know, it was just, and, you know, she wears it well, doesn't she?
I tell you, it's such a great, they as I say, the dynamic between them, the chemistry on the screen is just immense.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I literally cannot wait for people. Some people have seen the screening. I asked for a screening link instead, purely because I'm sort of trying to be a bit more COVID savvy, to be fair.
Yeah.
I was going to say, having looked at obviously your past projects that you've worked on, you've worked on Girl with All the Gifts, which is a very, very good, very different, very unique film. You've got The Green Zone in there, so you've worked with Paul Greengrass as well, which is again. Hats off to you. And I saw The Father as well. Yeah. I saw it prior to the big win on the Oscars, so I've seen that in its entirety. And you've got three very, very different projects there. So, which presents itself. The question is obviously, how do you pick your projects? What draws you to a project, or are you approached, or how does it work? Because they're really diverse and very eclectic.
Well, when I started, Tyrannosaur was my big break, and then I kind of started to get into doing those really kind of British independent films, which was a really amazing grounding, and it was fantastic. And I was a part of all these like very successful films, but I didn't want to ever get pigeonholed in any direction, and I always wanted to challenge myself with something new. So if I hadn't done period, I wanted to do period. If I hadn't done prosthetics, I wanted to do prosthetics, or whatever it is. And I still just think I do that now. It's all about script and director, though. Always it's script, director, and I always want to do something that allows me to do something just slightly different. The Father was one of those, though, that just came along, and within my agent saying, I'd worked with the producer before, so they'd come in to see if I was available. And as soon as she started to talk, I said, I don't care what the money is, I don't care. Yes, 100%, I'm doing it, 100%. Just to work with Anthony Hopkins was, you know, I just want to, there's people you just want to work with as well. And I want to look back on films and go, even if it wasn't successful, I did that. You know, I was a part of that.
Obviously, you mentioned Tyrannosaur, so your relationship with Olivia Colman goes back a long way then.
Absolutely, we met on that film, and that film changed both our lives.
Do you know what? I'm not sure I can. It's like there's a film called Nil by Mouth, which is Gary Oldman, which is in the same ballpark area, and they were really
They were really close, and Paddy and Gary were really close. And Gary Oldman was the first person to read Tyrannosaur's script, and he said to Paddy, "Don't change a word, just shoot it." And we never did. We shot exactly the script that was written.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Nil by Mouth was a real kind of. Paddy was like, "I want to make something as like that."
That was a game changer in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, as I said, sorry, I cut you off. You were going to say something else.
Oh no, I was just saying it just changed our lives working on that. We all went to Sundance with it, and I came back and was signed by my agent. And as soon as I got back, I was like, "What's going on?" And Olivia was winning all these awards, and it just changed everything. And we stayed very good friends. And then it's strangely the favorite happened again and changed our lives again. It's been a funny journey, but we're very close. I
was going to say there's no doubt, as you say, that Cruella is based in anti-establishment, and she's steeped in all these sort of anti-authoritarian themes. To what extent, it's a bit more of a sort of a general question, to what extent do you think she's an anti-hero in this film? Would you class her as such?
I think she is. I think she's just multifaceted, and I think that you don't see that a lot with female characters, and because of that,
no, not at all.
you can really hone in on this, like, oh, is she bad? Is she evil? And obviously I think about the black and white hair as like there's two halves of her. I think she's all those things.
Yeah, sure.
I think she has got a kind of a wicked or a naughty side to her, but hasn't everybody? So I think it's just more obvious because we don't see those female characters. So she's kind of seen as a villain, but is she really? I don't, Do
you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the old Ealing comedies of the 50s. It reminded me of especially Kind Hearts and Coronets with
love her.
Price. So she's on the edge of that in terms of where she is and where you think she's going. I was going to say, having done obviously flamboyant makeup and having had to do very understated, do you have a preference in terms of the approach you prefer, or is it dictated by the material?
It's dictated by the material, but I'm always going to try and push it. I'm never going to, I don't tend to choose a lot of contemporary jobs. I feel like I'd be bored 2 weeks in. I always want to do something different. I wonder if there is a bit of my musical taste is, I was kind of born in the wrong era, so I wonder if there is a bit of punk in me somewhere, and maybe I would have been if I was that age. But I feel like I want to do stuff that pushes the boundaries a bit, like in terms of kind of lots of people didn't get the look of The Favourite. I know I was very successful, but like the Academy didn't get it at all, and everyone said, "Oh no, Americans won't get it." And there's a bit of me that kind of likes that. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that. It's like, okay, cool. Which is like, when you like a band and nobody's heard of it, you feel like they're your little like secret.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as everyone's discovered them, they're not cool anymore. Sort of thing. You're not cool anymore. Got to find something else.
Yeah, so I kind of love that some people are not going to get some of these looks in Cruella and be like, what is that? Or it's gonna, it is. I read a review that said it slaps you in the face, and your face is like beet red still days later, and it's like, that's great. That's brilliant. That's what you want.
Yeah, no, it definitely leaves a mark. Okay. I was gonna say a little story. Anthony Hopkins. I listened into a Q&A during the Father promos, and he was actually doing another film when he was offered the role, and he said, "Would you mind waiting for me?" He said to the director, I'm doing this. I really love to do the film. Would you really mind waiting for me?" And I was really worried that they were going to find somebody else. and hand on my heart, and I was like, and I'm watching this going, he doesn't get it, does he?
No, is.
Oh. That level of self-deprecation, it's unbelievable in a man who's done what he's done.
He's incredible. He'll say things like, he'll go, "Oh, can can I get a cup of tea or can I get something? And then he'd be like, oh, actors. Oh, and oh, we're all the same, aren't we? It's like bloody actors, you know, but it tells you it, I don't think he gets who he is. He said he didn't go to the Oscars once because he was like, oh, I couldn't bear looking at my face on there. So he watched it from a hotel somewhere instead. And he's just like, he's amazing. He does Tommy Cooper impressions right up until the point they're rolling, and then suddenly turns that performance on in The Father. And then they're like, cut. And he's like, anyway, I'm going to tell you another one. And then does another Tommy Cooper. He's incredible.
Isn't that weird? Because he described it once as he's going, I just learn my lines. I come to work and I read my lines, and then I go home and I have dinner.
Well, that's why him and Olivia are very, very similar. When we did Tyrannosaur,
really?
all the Q&As afterwards were like, how did you not take this home with you? And she was like, I was just kind of acting. And they're exactly the same. So she'd be telling him some dirty joke on set, and then suddenly they're both into this thing. And then it's like action, and she's like, right, I'm off home. It's just turns it on like that. So they're very suited in that way, and he loved her. They loved each other.
That's tremendous. As I said, I just wanted to mention it because I remember it when I watched it.
I know, it doesn't surprise me.
I've got one last question for you, Nala, then I'll leave you to evening as it's late for both of us. Can you describe your perfect Sunday afternoon?
Oh,
there you go.
That's a good question. Well, I live in Margate by the sea.
Okay.
So, and I've got a little dog, Ziggy, which is another reference to Bowie. So I think with Ziggy and my chap going for long walks and then come back, and I collect vinyl. So listening to vinyl in the afternoon with a glass of wine, that would be pretty good. Pretty simple, away from all the craziness of work.
There you go. That's all we need. It doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be what you do. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Lovely to talk to you.
And as I said, good luck with the film. And there's whisper around the campfire already that it might get an Oscar nomination. And I know it's early days, but it deserves recognition, if not on that level, on some level at least. That's
thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Not a problem at all.
Enjoy
Margate and take care.